We were just going to wait a few more minutes for people to come in. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell is here. She has to leave for a very important meeting. And before we get started, Congresswoman Dingell, would you like to say something? And I know you have to leave and can't sit up here and take Q&A right now.
So I came you all because I care deeply, and I've been listening to you. I just was saying to somebody from Bridge, I learned about this. Actually, I learned about this from the township before I ever learned about it from the University of Michigan. And I have the same information that you have, to be perfectly frank. Brenda asked me if I would hold a town hall meeting, and I said, I'll ask Michigan to do it. And we didn't have it I can't have a town hall meeting if I don't have the answers to the questions that you have. I think, and I do apologize, just in case you haven't noticed, the federal budget's in crisis again. We're in ICE. I fear we may shut the government down again on Friday, which you may have different feelings on, but I cannot support ICE funding right now. I won't. And the way the Senate, so that's what our emergency meeting is at 7 o'clock about what we're going to do. So all these issues matter. There are too many important issues in this country right now. And I am going to say to you, they're trying to create chaos. They're trying to we don't know what to focus on. We get tired and worn down. Do not get tired. Do not get worn down. Do not continue. Do not express what you are concerned about. And your being here tonight shows you won't get tired. You will express your concerns. So having said that, I have spent an enormous amount of time studying data centers since this started. And I see my friend Jim DeSena up there, who we work together to keep the Flat Rock Dam from being removed. But there needs to be transparency. I called the CEO with regard to the Saline Township project. When I pick up a paper and DTE says we will not allow public input, that's bullshit. Every single person, every community has a right to have input to the Public Service Commission, but also to ask questions about what's going in your backyard, to have input into what's going into your backyard. And I'm trying to figure out what legislation we need to pass at the federal level. I know that your state legislators from here are looking at it at the state level, but issues you need to ask questions on are utilities. So how much energy is it going to take? What's going to happen if we have snowstorms like we did now and people lose their power? Is that data center going to take all the power and you're going to have less power? How are you going to ensure that residential rate users don't have any increase and what their rate is going to be? And you need guarantees that one of the things I say now is promises made, promises kept. Water. These data centers need a great deal of water for cooling centers. The Saline one, they say they're going to be, and if you talk to LCV, the way they say they're going to do it is with loop cooling. Well, how are you going to monitor that? What's it going to be? What are they going to do for water cooling here? What water do they want to use? How are you going to ensure your water is protected and you're not going to pay increased rates for water if they do this? What are they going to do with renewables? What's it going to do to the environment? And if you don't want it, why are they forcing it on you? So I'm working very closely, have been working with your township, and there are a ton of other issues, and this one is more complicated than some of the others where I'm being myself. And because it is with the University of Michigan, and in other communities you can ask about fire and police and what's going to happen to your taxes and all of that. And these are questions we've been asking from the beginning, and you should keep asking. So I thank your leadership for caring, for fighting for you, making their voices heard. And did I summarize it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Brenda talks to me about this every single night, and I talk to her. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for coming. I want to welcome everyone to the township hall here that we're having here and the event to get the information out to the public, accurate information. Oh, you can't hear? Can you hear me now? All right, good. I just want to welcome everyone. What's going to happen is that Attorney Winters will go first and give the historical perspective of where we started and where we are right now. And then we're going to have our state representatives, which is Representative Dosana, who's here, and Jimmy Wilson. They were at the first meeting, so they were kind enough to come back at this meeting. Congresswoman Dingell was going to stay. She cannot stay. And if we have another one, we will invite her back to give any federal updates that we have. At the end, we have cards that people can write on for questions. They will be collected and they will be read by the volunteers that are here from our staff. And then if we don't know the answer to the questions, we'll tell you we don't know, we'll find out the answer. So the goal here is just to be open and transparent and factual. Tomorrow, the University of Michigan did schedule a community meeting in Ypsi Township for tomorrow. If you didn't have the opportunity to sign up, I'm not sure if they're going to have another meeting or not, because just like our first meeting, it was at capacity quickly. So that meeting is tomorrow at the Marriott. If you're registered, you can go. If you're not registered, they're at capacity. So I don't know if they will have another one or not. We'll just keep getting information. I'm sorry? Well, Congresswoman Dingell says that she will make them have another one. We don't have a lot of influence, so I hope that does occur. And I believe it when she says she'll fight for it. So without any further delay, Mr. Winters, would you like to start?
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, again, my name is Doug Winters. And just to give you a little bit of background, I was born and raised in what they refer to as the Will Run Village. That village was the home for men and women who worked in the bomber plant during World War II, built by Henry Ford. That's where I was born and raised until they demolished the temporary housing and we moved to other parts of the township. I'm proud to say that I am a product of the Will Run educational system, K through 12. I also graduated from Eastern Michigan University and also a Wayne State Law School graduate. I have been the township's attorney since 1984, and during that time period, I have worked for 5 township supervisors, 6 township clerks, 3 treasurers, and numerous trustees. While every township board since 1984 through the present will eventually establish its own identity during its 4-year term, the one common denominator that has been true for all township boards that I have worked for is that they will always do what is in the best interest of Ypsilanti Township residents, and not the politicians in Washington, D.C. and Lansing, who at times are more influenced by the lobbyists than their own constituents. I would like to begin this meeting with a quote that's attributed to the late U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan and specifically directed to U of M. While you are entitled to your own opinion, you are not entitled to your own facts. In addition, is to go through the presentation this evening, knowing that U of M has finally, and when I say finally, I mean finally, has scheduled their meeting, which they scheduled 2 weeks ago on the night of our first public information meeting. They finally scheduled their first meeting. But as we go through tonight's meeting and the one for tomorrow evening, keep in mind what was written years ago. There is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be made known and brought to light. So, what is the purpose of tonight's meeting? Why did you come out in this cold, inclement weather? What is it that we are supposed to share with you that will help better understand what this township board has gone through during the last 9 to 10 months? The purpose tonight is to speak truthfully, factually, and clearly as to what this board has done to prevent the University of Michigan and Los Alamos from building and constructing 2 data centers they have proposed for the Bridge Road, Textile Road location, which consist of 144 acres of natural and undeveloped land comprising hundreds of trees, wildlife, which if developed as proposed, will have a devastating and permanently damaging environmental impact upon this township for generations to come. Over my shoulder, you can see the 144 acres the U of M has either purchased or has under contract, and where they have selected to build these data centers. They want you to call them computational centers, but they function in all forms as a data center. Make no mistake about that. I'll get to the other picture in a second here. If those data centers are allowed to be built along the banks of the Huron River, it will also require the construction of at least a 110 megawatt DTE substation, along with what is referred to as high power tension and transmission lines. They have not shown us what this DTE substation would look like, but you can also find out yourself what a 110 megawatt substation consists of. And you'll see it's not a very pretty sight in regards to the transformers, the high tension wires, etc. Now, according to the University of Michigan's own Vice President for Government Relations, he has described these 2 data centers as being the biggest, baddest, and fastest computers in the world. And in order to really understand and appreciate how large this new DTE substation will be, the electricity that will be generated from this new substation in order to serve these 2 data centers is roughly equivalent to the current energy consumption of this entire township. In other words, this one substation will produce enough energy, has to produce enough energy to power those 2 data centers, which is equivalent to what we are now served as a township of 32 square miles. The other purpose of this meeting is to also make it clear that there's been so much misinformation directed at this township board that, again, to set the record straight. This past December, this township received a letter from the interim president of U of M stating that beginning in November of 2024 and over the past year, representatives from U of M have held numerous meetings and briefings with the township supervisor, trustees, and legal counsel. That statement is not true. In spite of the township's numerous requests to have U of M come here, face this audience, take questions, as we'll take questions tonight, they have continued to distance themselves from us, will not meet with us. We had one face-to-face meeting. That was on July 24th. That meeting lasted 90 minutes. The second meeting, if you could call it that, was a Zoom meeting that lasted less than 30 minutes. And at that meeting, they simply sat there and said, quote unquote, "We have no updates." When pressed further as to when we could expect U of M to make a decision, they simply stated, "The University of Michigan moves slowly, so, quote, get used to it. That's how this township board has been treated by the University of Michigan. Now, in order to understand the township's position thoroughly, we have to also explain how did U of M arrive at this location that they wish to build these two data centers? How did it come to be that they bought or have under contract this 144 acres? Well, in November of 2024, they purchased 20 acres on the corner of Bridge and Textile Road. At that time, they said they were going to build 2 office buildings, and they were going to build a substation that would only result in 2/3 being used for their needs, 1/3 for the public. Now, as I go further into what truly has transpired since November of 2024, just keep in mind, again, some of the quotes that we read in history come back as relevant more so today than before. But back in 1808, we had Sir Walter Scott with the phrase, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." That's exactly what's happened here. Has been deception, dishonesty from the very get-go. After U of M purchased the 20 acres in November of 2024, they submitted an application to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation requesting that they receive $100 million to go forward with this project. This project, by the way, is $1.2 billion. Just so you also know the facts, U of M is the 3rd wealthiest university in the United States. It's currently sitting on a $21 billion endowment fund. But yet, in this climate, and I'll get to that too, in this climate, they went to the MEDC, and Representative DeSana, and I know Wilson can speak on the MEDC. They went there with their hand out and said, we want $100 million to build these data centers. We were not aware of that. There's a good reason why we weren't aware of that. In order to be on the agenda to get the $100 million, you have to have either the support of the local community or what they referred to as an economic development organization. They didn't come to the township to tell us their plans. They went to Ann Arbor Spark. That's who they got their letter of support from, an Ann Arbor organization. And that was that organization that led the MEDC to approve the $100 million grant. Nobody in this township has elected anybody from Ann Arbor Spark to speak on our behalf. They do not speak on behalf of this township board, and it was by design that U of M deliberately concealed from the MEDC that they had not even spoken to the township when presenting for this $100 million grant. So the MEDC, which is currently under fire for a lot of other misappropriations, they approved this grant. And so what happens next? In less than 6 months, the Board of Regents approved U of M's request to go out and purchase the additional 124 acres. That's how you get to the 144. U of M never revealed to the state, they never revealed to the MEDC, they never revealed to this township that they had plans all along to build these data centers on 144 acres of virgin undeveloped land at the corner of Bridge and Textile Road. Again, what a tangled web we weave. So finally, the township, after being notified of this intent to purchase this 144 acres, we asked for a sit-down meeting with U of M to explain what they're doing. They did not have our support. We did not have the knowledge that they were doing what they were doing, and much less that they were asking for $100 million from an outside organization to fund these 2 data centers. Ypsilanti Township is the host community where these data centers are being proposed. Ypsilanti Township is not an outpost, nor is it a colony for Silicon Valley, or for that matter, the University of Michigan. And keep in mind, again, the context of U of M being one of the wealthiest universities in this country. Now, during that meeting in July, we implored them that that was not the best location to go. And in fact, we offered what the state of Michigan should have required. We offered them our support to go to the former property that was once occupied by General Motors Hydromatic. That factory was there after the bomber plant. At one time, it supported over 14,000 workers. It's an industrial site. And so in 2009, sorry, I got this. Yeah, go ahead and show that slide, sorry.
Well, she'll show it in just a minute. We're trying to load from the state representative what they wanted, so we'll put it up as soon.
Okay, we have that site, but many of you are familiar with that location. It was, it's 307 acres of former property owned by General Motors. And so we suggested very strongly that that was the appropriate location to locate these 2 data centers. Keeping in mind right now that the University of Michigan is not subject to our zoning laws. They don't even have to pay taxes. So they simply can go wherever they want to, in whatever community they feel like going to, and not have to even abide by land use policies. They can buy property anywhere in this state outside of it, but they won't actually buy property and build these data centers in Ann Arbor. That they will not do. So after the township strongly suggested that they look at the alternative site, the former GM location, for the next number of months, the township continued to receive telephone calls from those in power, telling the township officials and myself at times that the township will never receive any financial assistance from the state for future economic development if we as a township continue to oppose these 2 data centers being located along Bridge and Textile Road. The reason why the former General Motors property is the right place to go goes back to 2009. Many of you probably have family members, or maybe yourselves have at one point in time worked in the factories. But growing up in this area, I don't think any of us ever thought we'd see the day where General Motors would file bankruptcy. That's exactly what happened in 2009. General Motors filed bankruptcy, and in one fell swoop, Ypsilanti Township lost 35% of its tax revenue. During the last 17 years, we have slowly inched our way back to where we were in 2009, but we're not there yet. So what happened in 2009 to the former General Motors property? The bankruptcy court took control of all GM properties, and they turned those properties over to Racer Trust. Racer Trust stands for Revitalizing Auto Communities Environmental Response. The central purpose of the Racer Trust was to oversee the environmental cleanup and remediation of these properties so as to allow them to be repurposed, and once again with the goal of creating jobs and eventually restoring the tax base to those communities like the township that were economically damaged by the closure of those plants. From 2011 to 2016, that property was in fact cleaned up. The state of Michigan spent millions of dollars in making sure that property was cleaned up. And in fact, in 2016, the state of Michigan purchased that property from the Racer Trust, and of the 307 acres that currently is located there, only half is currently being utilized. You may have seen the American Center for Mobility, that tunnel. That's where they're testing for autonomous vehicles, the new technology for automobile industry. Perfect location to have the next generation of technology by U of M and Los Alamos. So we have encouraged them from the very get-go to go to that site and not destroy the wildlife, not destroy the woodlands, not to damage the Huron River, not to wreak economic havoc upon this part of the township just because they can. We have discussed with them, it's been in letters because they won't meet with us, we have discussed with them that if they located on the former ACM, on the former GM property, they would be in close proximity to the township's water and sewer plant. They would be able to utilize what Yucca refers to as reclaimed water to help cool the computers. The building of a new substation at that location would not have the visual and negative environmental impact as it will if located on the corner of Bridge and Textile Roads. This proposal has been embraced by certain state officials who will not speak on the record because they have advised the township that they do not have the political power to make U of M go there, in spite of the fact that it was the state of Michigan through the MEDC who awarded the third wealthiest university a $100 million corporate welfare check with no strings attached. The contrast between where they want to go and where we would prefer they go could not be greater. Adding further fuel to the fire is that the City of Ann Arbor's Planning Commission, one of their commissioners, has gone on record stating that the City of Ann Arbor, the Planning Commission, will do whatever it can to prevent any smokestacks or data centers coming to the city of Ann Arbor. That, my friends, is tantamount to environmental racism. In other words, don't go to Ann Arbor, go over to Ypsi Township. Put your data centers over here. We have not received any support from the governor's office requesting U of M to move from the proposed location on Bridge and Textile Roads to the ACM property. It is our collective opinion and position tonight that both the University of Michigan and the state of Michigan, through the MEDC and the powers that be, have violated the public trust in ever so many ways. Make no mistake, this is about greed. It's about greed benefiting one of the wealthiest universities in the world who has the influence and connections to do whatever they want. What has transpired here is reminiscent of one of the movies that I watch from time to time. I know I'm dating myself. It's a 1987 movie. It's called Wall Street. In that movie, Michael Douglas portrays the character Gordon Gekko, who famously delivered this quote: "Ladies and gentlemen, greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit, greed in all of its forms has marked the upward surge of mankind. We couldn't disagree more. This township continues to be treated by U of M as second-class citizens. We also are being utilized by U of M as a sacrifice zone to build these 2 data centers in our community as opposed to building them on their campus. We are viewed by them as being disposable and expendable. During our meetings at the township during the last 8 or 9 months, U of M's own employees have come to our meetings, and they warned us from the very beginning not to trust them, and they were right. The residents and activists who came to our meetings also told us that data centers at the Bridge Road, Textile Road locations were not good for our environment and would create a tremendous surge in electricity that would eventually be a cost to the township residents. They too were right. The township officials, after being denied access to any meeting that was going on between U of M and ACM, they did say in a very condescending fashion after the July meeting, well, we'll go back and see if we can make a deal, but you can't come with us. You township, you're the host community, but you're not allowed to have a seat at the table because we have a non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure agreements by themselves should be illegal when you're a state university and you're taking public taxpayer dollars to fund this operation. That should be illegal. But we said we think we might be able to help you. No, you can't come. So when you don't have a seat at the table, as someone once said, you find yourself on the menu. And so the township finds itself on the menu because we have been denied any opportunity to have a meaningful input into the decision-making processes, even though it's a state university funded by all of you, and they have been the recipient of $100 million. So we went to DTE. We told them, we do not want you to build a 110 megawatt substation at the corner of Bridge Road. They too said, well, we can't talk about that because we too have a non-disclosure agreement with U of M, so we can't even tell you anything about that, except you as township officials, you can do us a favor. Okay, what's that? They actually requested our township officials to, quote, go out and tell your residents that the construction of this new substation, well, it will not increase your electric bill. In fact, it will decrease it. You know, as we may have said to them in no uncertain terms, we may have been born at night, but not last night, okay? And so, even as we sit here tonight, look at your energy bills that you're going to receive here during the past week or two. Look at your bills. Even without the data centers being built, your bills are going to go up. DTE cannot be trusted. In fact, I just saw an article, I was not even aware of this, that when DTE goes to the Public Service Commission to seek a rate increase, which they do on a regular basis, they spend millions and millions of dollars to hire every silk stocking law firm they can find, all the consultants they can hire. They spend millions and millions of dollars to be able to make their case as to why they should receive a rate increase. That's not a surprise. What was a surprise to us in Michigan is that the cost that they spend to get a rate increase, all those millions of dollars get passed on to us. So even though they basically, it's not enough that they get a rate increase, you actually have to pay for their attorneys and consultants to convince the PSC to get a rate increase. Something is drastically wrong with this picture here. In other words, flip a coin, heads, DTE wins, tails, they win. We made it quite clear that we do not want a substation built on that corner. We do not want to have those data centers built there. I will say this, U of M has accomplished one thing that I will give them credit for, and that is they have united this township. They have united this township board. They have galvanized all persons of every political persuasion to fight against their efforts to locate these data centers along the Huron River. We continue and to believe that we can turn this around, but we can only do so if we have the help and support of the governor, our state elected officials, Congresswoman Dingell, and Senator Slotkin, to require U of M to relocate these data centers onto the industrial property that was acquired by the state of Michigan to begin with, remediated of all contamination, so as to encourage that type of technology to go there. We recognize that U of M has deep financial pockets and the bandwidth of connections and influence to do what they want. However, what they do not have is what we have, and that is the people. As stated by the late and renowned anthropologist Margaret Mead, quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." We need your support and the support of our elected federal, state officials to turn this around. This issue is not about the right or left from a political standpoint. It's about being right and wrong. And the Bridge Road, Textile Road location is dead wrong. It is wrong that U of M is not subject to our local ordinances. It is wrong that they do not pay police and fire protection. It is wrong and quite frankly outrageous that while people in this state, even today, are losing their Medicaid benefits, losing their nutritional benefits, struggling to pay utility bills, trying to stay warm, struggling to make ends meet in this economy, it is outrageous that against that backdrop, that U of M has the audacity to make application and receive a $100 million corporate welfare check while laughing all the way to the bank. As we take a moment and look around a number of our neighbors throughout southeastern Michigan, we are watching in real time how Google, Amazon, Meta, Oracle, and other big tech are forcing legal action against smaller communities who don't have deep financial pockets and the ability to protect their farmland, as we have witnessed as to what has happened in Saline Township. While many communities are taking a moment to place moratoriums and update their zoning ordinances, given the onslaught of the number of recent data centers being proposed throughout southeastern Michigan, U of M continues to take the smug position that they do not have to do anything since they are exempt from our rules and regulations. It is hard to believe how this state, which allows U of M to be exempt from taxation, gives U of M millions and millions of dollars in appropriations to run that university, turns around and gives them additional millions of dollars to harm our community without the host community having any right to participate in that decision making. Who does this? The power to turn this around is not, again, with the township board. If we could zone them out, we already would have done that. We can't do that legally. The power, again, is with the governor, the state, and our federal representatives. We would warn everyone that based on our experience, U of M is not a good partner. They're not trustworthy. They're arrogant and disrespectful to our township board. Our hope is that the new president has a different approach to partnering with local government, to lifting people up in areas of distress and needs. This has been very stressful, highly emotional, and continues to cause harm to a great many people in our community. We are simply asking, do the right thing, Governor Whitmer. Do the right thing, U of M. State Senator Jeff Irwin, Congresswoman Dingell, Senator Slotkin, and request that these data centers, once and for all, not be located on the banks of the Huron River, and that they basically do not have a negative impact upon one of the most environmentally sensitive area that contains, as you can see, hundreds of hardwood trees, which is a natural habitat for many animals. After our last informational meeting on January 14th, I personally received a number of videos from individuals who walk that property the township owns, which I'll get to in a second, showing bald eagles flying over that property. We're convinced that there's bald eagles located on that property, which I think in and of itself just again shows you this is a natural preserve. In addition, the only means of access to the township's South Hydro Park is the road that's located between the 20 acres and the 124 acres. In other words, the only way Ypsilanti Township residents or anyone else can access the South Hydro Park is to walk in between a substation with the high tension wires overhead and data centers, one of which is controlled by Los Alamos and undoubtedly will have federal agents and security as you walk on through that by that property. This is our passive recreation. People go there to fish. They go there to walk. They go there to even hike. And that you're going to take one of our natural preserves, and the only means of access is between your property, properties that you're buying for data centers, and have to walk under high tension wires to get there. Furthermore, we've advised U of M that all of us know that Los Alamos is a high value target. We all know that, given the nature of the work that they do. Why would you locate a high value target right near residential properties, right near the township's hydroelectric dam by the banks of the Huron River? And why would you locate there knowing that you are in fact a high value target when you could go to some place that we pointed out that was much more secure? Since the last meeting, the Township Board has taken several actions. We've discussed retaining our own environmental expert to either prepare and help review any environmental impact statement that we believe is required to be filed by U of M, unless they can find some kind of loophole to get around doing that. That purpose of that impact statement is to study any potential harmful effects to the air quality, soil, groundwater contamination, deforestation, removal of all the trees. Township is also looking to retain historians who will give us better insight as to the Huron River and whether it was used by Native American tribes for even burial grounds when they used to have ownership of that property. The township has also sent a letter to every state official, including U of M's regents, requesting them to come out and openly voice their support to relocate these data centers from Bridge Textile Road to the former GM property. And to date, as of this date, the only person that we sent the letters to that has responded in our support has been our state representative, Jimmy Wilson Jr. Nobody else that we sent the letters to. It's not a hard ask, people. We're simply saying, not there. Go over to the GM property. And that's too much to ask. then we as a township and you as a township resident have a right to know where people stand on that very simple issue. It's not that difficult. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close this presentation, and it's more or less addressed to the Board of Regents. It would be what I would say to them if they were sitting here tonight. And I would state the following. So where do we go from here? As I sit here tonight, I am reminded of the novel that was published by Charles Dickens in 1859 entitled A Tale of Two Cities. Dickens opens the novel with this sentence: "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was a season of light, it was a season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair." Regents, Ypsilanti Township is truly at a crossroads with your board. However, this crossroads does not have to be turned into a siege or a blockade. There is a path to be taken at this crossroad that will lead to success for all parties. To move forward, we are asking the Board of Regents at U of M, who also are elected by people of our state, to take the time and show that you care about our community, our residents, and your constituents. This issue is of utmost importance to us and will shape the township's future for generations to come. We truly need to help you understand that. Your proposed site to locate the U of M and Los Alamos data centers with the 110 megawatt electrical substation and the required switchgear along bridge and textile roads along the banks of the scenic Huron River, adjacent to both our hydro dam and Ford Lake, simply put, is not the right location. If you take the time to physically visit the two proposed sites in Ypsilanti Township, we believe it would help you understand why the industrial area that was purchased by the state of Michigan, where the contamination was remediated by Racer Trust, and where the American Center for Mobility is currently located, is clearly the preferred site for these two data centers. A drive along the Huron River and Ford Lake within the township will help us share with you the best of what the township has to offer. If it was warmer, you could take a canoe or boat ride down the Huron River and Ford Lake, and you could see what we see and want to protect. Our part of the Huron River, along with Ford Lake, is a jewel of the township and a source of pride in our community. It provides recreational, health, economic benefits to our residents. There are 10 parks located along the Huron River and Ford Lake, 2 of which are adjacent to the proposed U of M and Los Alamos data centers. Our residents, along with the state of Michigan, have invested millions of dollars in developing and supporting our park system. Our residents have spent millions on maintaining and protecting our dam, which serves as an alternate energy source. We fully recognize that our people, our places, and our cultures are not built on a foundation of wealth and power, but on hard work, resolve, and a promise to help others and to provide a better life for our families. We know that we are socioeconomically the outliers of Washtenaw County. We recognize we have limited resources, lower incomes, almost no generational wealth, and that we are home to the largest populations of brown and black families within our county. In societal class ratings, we are predominantly working class, middle class. We have historically and continue to face the impact of classism, racism, and because of personal prejudices, systemic policies, societal norms, and discrimination in our township, our residents have always had to, quote, stand up to be seen and to be heard. With the hard work and strength and examples of leadership by our founding residents, who were the greatest generation, we have learned how to seek our rightful place to protect our families and to build our community. We are the ones who built the B-24 bombers at the Willow Run Bomber Plant that defeated Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich and brought World War II to an end. Our residents, many of whom migrated from the South, my parents included, and around the world to work at the bomber plant and the auto plants following the war. They left their families, everything they had, everyone they knew, to move to Ypsilanti Township to build a better life for themselves and their families. Many of our residents are struggling today to make ends meet, to feed their families, provide a safe place to live. We need the Board of Regents to help us protect our people and our environment, to be a part of lifting our community up. Board of Regents, you can still help us move our community and your constituents forward by locating the U of M and Los Alamos data centers, along with the DT substation and switchgear in an industrial area in the township owned by the state of Michigan, currently leased to the American Center for Mobility. We know this site will work. It was home to the GM Hydromatic Powertrain Factory. Its physical proximity to Yucca will allow both data centers to use the reclaimed water, which will help with both the sustainability of the data centers and have a positive environmental impact. This is an opportunity for the Board of Regents to take a leadership role while also showing our residents that you truly care. Some of our most vulnerable residents live directly across the street from your proposed site for these two data centers. Ask yourself this question: would you want to live and raise your family across the street from these two data centers and look out and see a DT substation along with the attendant switchgear? Our residents and your constituents deserve better. We have a legacy of standing up and fighting for our community and each other. We fought at one time the most powerful and wealthiest lobby in Michigan, which was the manufactured home lobbyists, who, along with a very significant and politically connected developer, wanted to destroy our land, our tax base, all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court. Township prevailed. Ypsilanti Township also joined in the legal fight to stop the world's largest toxic waste incinerator and injection wells from being built right near the Lincoln School campus. That fight took years of our lives, time from families, and was expensive. But with others, our people won that fight to protect our land, air, and water against wealth and power. Most recently, this township also stood shoulder to shoulder with Van Buren Township by financially supporting their legal fight to prevent radioactive toxic waste from being transported from Niagara Falls, New York, through Ypsilanti Township on the way to a landfill in Van Buren Township. We will stand up and fight if we have to. We will protect the People's River, the Huron River. We will protect our environment. We will fight to protect our businesses and homes from allowing this 144 acres to be developed by U of M and Los Alamos for two data centers, along with a 110 megawatt power substation and switchgear. as a community, St. Township will do everything possible to stop the building of these data centers at this location. Just do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn. Thank you for that history and important information and the truth about what has occurred since we first found out about this proposal. Next, we're going to have our state representatives, and I believe Representative Jim DeSanta is going to go first.
Yes, ma'am.
And then Representative Wilson.
Thank you for having me again. I know, see some of the same faces from the meeting before, so I'll try not to repeat myself. I'm State Representative Jim DeSanta. I'm just a little bit east of here, northern Monroe County and southern Wayne County. The same pressure that you feel on data centers, I'm feeling all around my district. Frenchtown Township has one proposed as well. And I've been to quite a few of these events. And what I can tell you is I'd like to start off by saying that the cost-benefit analysis for data centers is so out of whack, no community wants them. The noise, you're going to get about 90 decibels a mile out all around the data center. And if you read up and look, do your research, read up on the data centers that are in Indiana, Ohio, Texas, almost all of the residents will tell you there is a dull hum that comes out of them from the backup generators to the HVAC equipment that is running near constantly because they have to cool the building. The water usage is so out of whack. They use a lot of water, and they have to put glycol in the water because they have to have the water be non-corrosive to their pipes. So they're actually polluting the water that they have to then put back into the sewer system. They'll tell you that it's closed loop. That's a misnomer. Question them further when they tell you about closed loop. None of these data centers that I've heard of or learned of are just taking in water and recirculating it through their system. They're always going to discharge water, and they're going to use millions of gallons of water. Now, you might say, we have millions of gallons of water, but would this be our purpose for all of our water, to have data centers that employ nearly no one? The energy usage, and this is a big one, and this is one you can, when you talk to your neighbors, the energy usage is huge. It's like 10% of your area energy usage will be used up just by this data center. I've heard the stat of about 1 million homes. A data center takes up the same amount of electricity of 1 million homes. That's a lot of power. Our grid is already vulnerable. I'm sure you've been reading the articles about potential brownouts when it gets, I just saw it this week about, they were saying that we could potentially have brownouts because of the cold. I certainly don't think we want to lose our power, which the infrastructure was built for people, not for something like this. Could you pull that poll up real quick, Supervisor? So just to give you an idea that you're not alone, this is a poll that was done. It was a very fair poll. It wasn't a push poll. They just asked straight up, do you oppose or favor data centers? And overall, it's 59% to 28% strongly oppose. And if you look at the subgroups, women, men, Democrat, Republican, independent, white, African American, every group opposes data centers. Some groups quite heavily, as you can see, because I think that most of us, and alluding to Mr. Winter's statement, most of us feel that we get stuck with these because they go to the easiest place they can put them. So they're not popular. And people don't like them for a reason, just the reasons that I just told you. And they will drop your property value. They're not going to be able to convince anybody otherwise. If somebody's looking at a house, they're not going to want to be within a mile of a data center. They're going to look elsewhere. If they're going to spend a lot of money, they're going to go farther away. So that's going to devalue your home if you're close to this. And I'll try to be as brief as possible because I want to leave time for questions and for Rep. Wilson. And I really appreciate Rep. Wilson because we're fighting the same battle together. We're getting a bill ready. We hope to introduce it soon that would place a 1-year moratorium statewide on data centers. Now, I don't want to give you any false hope. These data centers came right after we gave them the tax breaks, which Rep. Wilson and I didn't give them to them, but we crazily voted to give these guys tax breaks, which makes absolutely no sense. But so they passed, the governor signed them, and it would be very difficult to get the moratorium passed at the state level, but that's what we're attempting to do. Now, as we go into the environmental area, I spoke with Congresswoman Dingell. They're not enforcing environmental impact studies right now. Doesn't mean that we can't push for that. They really need to perform an environmental impact study on this site, and we should demand that they do the environmental impact study. I'm sure that this site would come out very sensitive on environment, right, as we look at it. It's next to a river. It's all wooded. We've got animals living in there, and we've got bald eagles flying around. I live on a farm. I have bald eagles flying over my house nearly every day. Herons, hawks, ducks. I don't think too many of any of them would want to be within 50 feet of a data center. We have a bill also to repeal the tax breaks. That, again, it's an uphill climb to try to get that through, but we're trying. Some communities have passed moratoriums, 6-month to 1-year moratoriums. Howell, you might have noticed Howell did that. You guys are in a little unique situation because you're dealing with a nonprofit, you're dealing with a university. You have the avenue of the Board of Regents, as Mr. Winters alluded to, and I think you have a very good avenue there to put pressure on the Michigan Board of Regents to tell them you don't want this data center in your community. Just tell them you don't want it, period, but tell them you certainly don't want it here. And so we've got a problem. The utilities are, in favor of these. They want these. The unions, the pipe fitters, a lot of your construction companies, it's big bucks for them. And so we have an uphill battle to try to fight these. You have to fight these as your community, your residents, full frontal attack. You've got the support of your board, and I think you really have to hit the message that you do not want this, and in hopes that you can turn them around to another site. So I've mentioned about the two different attempts that we're making in the state legislature. We're looking into other avenues. We possibly could try to pull the grant money. I'm not sure that would make a difference, but that's another avenue that we could pursue. I think those are all the points I want to hit that we hit the last time. I think you guys understand a lot of this. It's so negative for your community. And I think my last point would be, we talked a little bit about the bald eagles, subject to the Endangered Species Act. We've got photographs, there are eagles on the property, and I would encourage you to sue the University of Michigan over the Endangered Species Act and do everything you can to slow this down, delay it. The longer you can fight this, the better chance you have of stopping it altogether and having them just go somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wilson?
Yes, good evening. Jimmy Wilson, state representative here in the Ypsi Township, Ypsi City, Pittsfield, Superior Township area. And whoever said that Democrats and Republicans can't work together, right? I support everything Representative DeSena just said, and especially you see at the poll. This is something that is basically nonpartisan at this point across the state of Michigan. Like Representative DeSena said, a year ago, there was a bill to give sales and use tax breaks to these big tech companies. We voted no against that, but there was a majority to support that. And that's why you actually see this huge influx of data centers all around the state now. This U of M project, if we rewind a year ago, and I've been pretty open about this, that up front, it sounded okay. 20 acres, $100 million investment into the Ypsi Township. It's going to be research heavy, potentially cancer research. This is how it was sold to us. AI research, 200 jobs, $200,000 salaries, economic impact for small businesses in the area. However, over the course of about 6 more months, you get to about June, where the University of Michigan's authorizing the purchase of another 100 acres. And then you find out that these 200 jobs are probably going to be more remote jobs. And you find out that out of these 2 facilities, these 2 buildings that will be built, they're not going to be closer to the road. They're actually going to be right on the river. You find out that, they'll do some research in one facility, but when you ask, what about this other facility, it's highly classified, and they can't tell you. When you ask about community benefits, because it's University of Michigan, they don't pay property tax. They said, we'll talk about that later down the line. I think I asked the question when I said, well, what about you looking at all of our parks? You look at the master plan of our park system, and maybe you fix up all the parks or something. You're just throwing ideas out there. And I said, well, we'll talk about it when we get later down the line. Our township officials said, well, you're not paying any millage, especially that police and fire millage. Can you at least agree to pay that portion of what you would have paid on a millage? Because you're probably going to need police and fire services. Again, they didn't want to even agree to it. They didn't want to talk about it. We'll talk about it later down the line. So U of M has been less than transparent. They sold something at the beginning, and over time it has become something else that nobody wants. So recently, right before Christmas, I introduced a bill, House Bill 5362, and that would claw back that $100 million that was authorized to the University of Michigan. Right now, that bill is in the Appropriations Committee. Fortunately, Rep. DeSena is on that committee, so I know that if it finally gets to a hearing, I can at least have his support and he can talk to his colleagues. So we're waiting for some other things to shake out regarding different appropriations. And I'm hoping I can at least get a hearing. We can bring in some township officials, some experts, and different folks, maybe even some community members, to just say, claw this money back, because hindsight is 20/20. We can think of, I think Attorney Winters mentioned it, $100 million right now. We could use for a whole lot of other things that are very important, not for a data center. The University of Michigan will say, hey, this is just some big supercomputer. But when you look at the amount of energy they're using, it's basically a data center. When you look at the 200,000 gallons per day of water that they're going to use, that's basically a data center. And so all these things have revealed themselves later down the line. And I'm actually glad to work with our township board and community members as well. But like Jim said, Rep. DeSena said, it's going to take all of us together because it's University of Michigan. But also you have a lot of legislators that supported data centers in the first place. And so at the bare minimum, I'm hoping that we can at least strip the dollars back. And the bill itself doesn't try to spend those dollars and all the good things of housing and Medicaid cuts possibly and food assistance and all these other things that we probably need. It actually just puts the dollars back into the general fund, but not for this data center. So there are other bills. I think Representative DeSena mentioned some of those. I'm also looking at a bill to change how our universities, colleges, universities in the state acquire property and actually put them in the Zoning Enabling Act, which then they would have to follow the rules and guidelines of the local governments around the state. And so we're talking with some different folks and our attorneys up in Lansing to get that bill properly written, and you should see that one coming out real soon. I know I get a lot of support from all the local governments because local control is very important. But I think it's just unfair that these universities and colleges can just purchase land all over the state with no real hearing, at least a hearing in front of the public, where you can actually ask these questions and send them through the proper process that you send all the other businesses through. So I think I'll stop there and just say that, outside of us two, there are still other legislators that are pushing. But again, if you have friends, family, colleagues around the state, get them to get on board with pushing their legislators also, that either A, no data centers, or B, we need some really strict regulations in place that protects everybody. So I'll just leave it there.
To Jimmy, I think when we passed the tax breaks, and I'm sure Rep. Wilson would agree, I don't think a lot of our colleagues really anticipated the flood of data centers that were going to come. I think those of us that were seeing things pretty clearly could see it, but I think some of our colleagues were a little naive, and now they're hearing from their residents, and they're seeing these massive hyperscale data centers going out in the country, and they're hearing, and you saw that poll, and I told my leader, I said, these data centers are very unpopular. He says, oh, they poll terrible. So they're seeing it, they're hearing it, and they need to hear it more. That's why we're going to any of these events to tell people to speak up that you don't want these. We don't need 55 to 60 data centers. And so I think now there's a little different environment. It may not be the repeal of the tax bill. It may not be a moratorium. It might just be fighting it community by community to slow this down and to tell these companies, we don't want these. They need to go somewhere else. They're not beneficial to our community. I cannot see the benefits. Some people will sell you on AI. Like Jimmy said, they'll tell you the benefits about that later. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll turn it back over to Supervisor Stumbo.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to collect the questions, and we'll have two people that can read, and we'll have the appropriate person respond.
If I can get started, is the bridge and textile property desirable because of the river? And what is their argument for only this location?
We don't really know beyond the fact that they want to have their own
Thank you.
property. My concern with U of M is that in their application they submitted to the state of Michigan back in December of 2024, when they first said they were going to go to bridge and textile, when you read it more carefully, in their own words, they say that they were going to build, they said they were going to build at least 2 data centers. That was in their application. So when someone says, I'm going to build at least 2, it makes a person like myself wonder, is there a long-term plan to build more? Because you certainly do not need 144 acres if you're just going to build those 2. So I think there's a lot more that we just don't know, because they're not showing us their cards. They won't let us attend any meetings. And so right now, I think they want to control the property because they have additional plans to go further beyond just these 2 initial data centers. That's my opinion.
Next question.
This resident says, maybe I missed it, but how do I contact the Board of Trustees, Governor's Office? What else can we do?
It's the Board of Regents, I think, is who, is it posted on our website? I thought it was. Yes. It is. It's posted, yeah, it's posted on our website, ypsilantownship.org. So you can go there and it'll list out all the emails for people to contact. Next question. Mark? Andy?
How does this impact measuring local climate goals? For instance, will the University of Michigan include the environmental impacts in their reporting, even though it is not on campus?
They're not
The
required.
environmental impact study, my understanding is it goes to the Army Corps of Engineers, and then it goes to the EPA. And we are currently having a little bit of a problem, maybe a partisan problem, getting that enforced. And I just want you to know that I believe, I can speak for myself, that the environment is very important. And you can see this is a very sensitive site along a river. It should be done. We should demand that it would be done. And I'm hoping that Congresswoman Dingell can intercede for us a little bit there and have the EPA agree that this should have an environmental impact study. Now, absent that, I really believe that there's, to go beyond that, to reiterate, there are endangered species on this property, and I believe you have legal recourse. The U of M can't avoid the courts just because they are a nonprofit. They are going to have to answer to endangered species on the property. I really believe that they have to answer to that. That's my opinion.
Next.
I said I had an answer. I know, I'm not really sure where I read it, and you probably could Google it, but the whole data center movement in Michigan and throughout the nation is basically just thrown out our whole climate control and the limiting the footprint of, the use of carbons and stuff. That it's just, it's not going to exist when all this takes place. I think you could Google that, because there was a major scientific piece that I had read that talks about that.
I can add
Thank
to
you.
that. So they don't have enough power with green energy to fuel these data centers, so they're going to need to do them with carbon, with natural gas, and then they're going to have to sequester the carbon. So, and you say, what do they have to do to sequester carbon? They have to liquefy it and then shoot it into the ground. So it's a double whammy. It's a double negative. They're going to use carbon. I happen to not be in opposition to using carbon, but the green energy, they can't do it with the green energy, and then they're going to have to use natural gas, and then they're going to have to take the carbon because of our law and sequester it, drive it deep down in the ground, a couple thousand feet. And you can do your research on that. No matter how you feel, whatever side of that you fall on, neither is good, honestly, in my opinion.
Thank you. Next question.
This question is regarding Ann Arbor Spark. What's their involvement, funding, and interests?
Well, Ann Arbor Spark is what they refer to as an economic development organization. They seemingly, from my standpoint, seem to promote the interests of Ann Arbor and University of Michigan. In order to be on the agenda for the MEDC, U of M needed to actually have the support of the township or this EDO. They chose the EDO because some of the same members from the U of M also sit on this Ann Arbor Spark. It can be a very incestuous relationship because one hand washes the other. So again, they didn't come to this township and ask us, what do you think about this application? Do you support this? Is this a good idea for your community? They went behind our backs, got their own Ann Arbor organization to issue a letter, and based upon that, they received $100 million. And I can't emphasize enough, to me, just the outrage that's all you have to, again, it's about greed. The rich get richer, so to speak, and these tax breaks give breaks to billionaires to become trillionaires. So it goes on and on.
Next question.
On December 11th, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order restricting state rights to regulate AI data centers. Are Michigan legislatures able to place strict regulations and/or moratoriums on all data centers?
Not happy about that. I like local control, just like Rep. Wilson. I believe the community should be able to determine what comes into their town. It's an open question as to whether a state legislature passing a moratorium, that whether it would violate that, because it's a really broad executive order about, because I believe it addresses AI also. And so we're just going to have to wait and see what kind of state control I believe we do have control over our state as far as the number of these that come in and the size and scale and how they're built. I believe and I believe local communities have that. And make no mistake about this. This is 120 acres. These are not just going to be a couple of good-sized pole barns. These buildings are going to be huge. They are going to be very large, as bigger than you can really even envision on this property. These buildings contain a lot of electronics, a lot of hard drives, a lot of piping, a lot of wires, water coursing through them. They're very intricate. They $100 million is just a fraction of what's going to be built if they go here.
And I just want to add, back in July with the reconciliation bill that was signed into law, they tried to put, I think it was the House members tried to put preemptions on allowing states to put AI regulations in, but I think the U.S. senators, they took that language out because they wanted states to still have their own autonomy. And so then in December, when the president put the executive order out, it still has no teeth. So until Congress actually passes something that says the states can't do it, yes, the state of Michigan still can put some kind of regulations in place.
Let me just add one more thing real quick. The executive order, I don't believe, prevents, like in Frenchtown Township, which is in my district, they are writing an ordinance, and I know this isn't necessarily something you can do to you at University of Michigan, but they're writing an ordinance with distances from property lines, trees to buffer the sound, some pretty strict regulations into their ordinance in the hopes that the data center would say, no, we don't want to do all that. We've got a farm we just bought, and this township's not going to tell us anything that you're telling us. So the more you can ask of them from a standpoint of things that you would like them to do, the less likely that they're going to go ahead with it.
Next question.
Next, why is the discussion, quotation marks, how are our utility rates going to be affected, when it should be how high will our dividends be for allowing you into our community? And the final comment here is, yes, show me the money, pay us.
That's a statement, and we agree. Next question.
Is it true that Debbie Dingle accepted financial contributions from U of M and DTE?
Congresswoman
That's
Dingle.
public information that you can look up. I believe it's true. I mean, I'm not going to question Congresswoman Dingle's integrity. I happen to have a lot of respect for her. Her husband was a great conservationist who loved the outdoors. I think he would be very upset to see these data centers going in sensitive wetlands like this and out on farms. I really do believe he would say, this is a bridge too far for me. DTE and data centers, you guys go into an industrial area, build what you need, but not 55 to 60 of these. This is really beyond what we need, in my opinion.
Congresswoman Dingle's aide is in the room, and he will give that information to her, and she will address it. Next question.
I do want to just add that Rep. DeSena also had a package of bills that I co-sponsored as well that actually doesn't allow the monopoly utilities to continue to fund politicians and get money out of politics. And so I do want to give him a little credit and a shout out before he has to leave that he did actually sponsor that legislation. And there's also ballot initiative out there too, but thank you.
Next question.
Why were 2 parcels of land allowed to be purchased by U of M?
They're privately owned properties. The one is owned by, the 124 piece is owned by, I think, Norfolk Southern Railroad. The 20 acres is a private party, so they're private properties. We had no control over those.
Next question.
This is an opposite question of the first one we had that I asked tonight, but what is the problem with the GM powertrain site, and why won't U of M build there?
That's our question.
There is no problem with that site. In fact, if I sound frustrated, it's because it was the state of Michigan that had all of these brownfield sites that were left behind during the GM bankruptcy, and a lot of money went into those properties to be remediated, with the purpose being that the communities that were harmed the greatest should have the ability to have their tax base restored by having those properties repurposed. Now, in this case, the state of Michigan has put in over maybe close to $100 million or more to buy the property and clean it up, as well as invest in that with the Racer Trust. We have no idea why, because only half the property is being utilized by HCM. It makes, in fact, if anything, and I wish the state would make it a requirement that if brownfield sites are available and you have water and sewer, which we do right next to the property, in order to get a tax break or any kind of an incentive, you should have to go there instead of taking away thousands of farm acres, green space that once they're gone forever. And it makes no sense when you have all these industrial sites that are development ready, so to speak, with utilities and infrastructure, that they could be utilized immediately.
We have no shortage of old industrial sites.
Next question.
If U of M moves to the old GM site, would that really address our concerns about power, noise, and water health? And the second part of the question is, would DTE not have to build a substation?
I think wherever a data center goes, you're going to have the challenges, but again, the location does matter, because you're in an industrial area. You're far enough away from immediate impacts upon neighboring businesses, homes, etc. Like I said, the bomber plant was there for a long time. GM Hydrometic was there for decades, and it just makes sense to locate there. A new substation there would not have the same adverse environmental impact. It's not by the Huron River, and it's not in a green space. It doesn't affect the endangered species. So again, all the reasons why they should go there makes perfect sense as to why they should do that. So we do not understand why there is this pushback not to go to where it makes the most sense.
I also want to add that when we had our meeting with DTE, they said that there's already a substation at American Center for Mobility. They would just have to upgrade, I think there's 6 transformers there. They have to upgrade about 3 of those transformers to take on that capacity. So they would just have to upgrade some transformers that are already there. So there's already a substation at American Center for Mobility. And I want to add that we got more information on DTE than we got out of University of Michigan, actually, because we asked some of these same questions.
Next.
2 questions on this card. If we vote this down, will the decision of the people be honored?
Well, we don't have any authority to vote it down. That is the problem that we're having. So the power of the people gathering together and asking the Board of Regents and our governor and our other elected and state officials to oppose it is our best option. This board will not vote on anything to do with the University of Michigan and Los Alamos.
The unfortunate part about the point that they're making is in all these other townships, it is subject to a vote of the people, whether it's zoning or permitting. And then after your township or your city grants it, it can be flipped by citizen referendum. You can't do that here because of the nature of a nonprofit and a college. So it's a unique problem you have.
The second part on this question is, who is paying for the power usage?
All right.
The power usage, you mean to build the substation, and they say it's going to be the developer is supposed to do that, but
If you
we're not
look
sure if
across,
that's
if
accurate.
you look across the country where these go, energy rates go up, not down.
right.
So just look at where they go, and they're in Texas, they're in Indiana, quite a few in Ohio. Virginia has a lot, and many of you may know that the Virginia governor won on an anti-data center platform. So these are not popular. People do not want these.
Next.
So there's two questions. Will Congresswoman Dingell speak against this project at the Regents meeting? And then the follow-up question is, will the township officials speak against this at the Regents meeting?
Well, we're going to the meeting tomorrow, those of us who are signed up and allowed to go. It's not an open forum like this. They don't have dialogue back and forth, ask questions and answers. But we have told them we don't want it to come here. We have told them in person and by Zoom. We've said it in the newspaper, we said it in letters. What we need is we sent letters to every elected official from county, state, and our federal, and our governor. Please tell them no to this textile bridge site. And we, other than State Representative Wilson, no one else has agreed to take that position yet. So we've asked twice, and we still have one elected official, State Representative Wilson, that has taken the stance against this location.
If I could just add to that, and you can find this resolution on the township's website, it's Resolution 2025-23. The last two, be it therefore resolves, on that resolution clearly states as follows. Be it further resolved, Township Board calls upon all elected officials, including Governor Gretchen Whitmer, U.S. Senators Gary Peters, Alyssa Slotkin, Congressman Debbie Dingell, State Senator Jeff Irwin, State Rep Jimmy Wilson Jr., and the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners to join the township in publicly opposing the building of these two high-performance research centers at the Bridge Road and Textile Road location. And the next be therefore calls upon the same people to support them going to the hydrometric location. So the Township Board passed that resolution back in August of 2025. We sent that resolution out. We just sent it out again at the end of our January 14th meeting, and the only elected official that it was sent to again that has publicly supported that has been State Representative Jimmy Wilson. So we have, you say, what can you do? I think you'd call upon your elected officials to take a stand. You either support the township's position that it not go on Bridge Road and go to hydrometric location, or you don't. It's that simple, because we can't vote on this issue. It's not subject to a vote. It's not subject to a referendum. But we can call upon the political powers that be to make their presence known, their position known, because at some point UMM does have to deal with the State of Michigan's Appropriations Committee, the Governor's Office for funding, and many other things. So they obviously can be pressured by the right people. We simply, as a Township Board, cannot do anything more than what we've done.
We also sent it to the Board of Regents and asked them to take a position, and everyone's elected that we have sent it to, just asking. I mean, we're begging for help from some of our higher elected officials, and there's just silence. We need help, and you can help by asking them to do it as well. Next question.
Will the township be responsible for costs associated with road infrastructure repair and upgrades caused by the construction?
They are county roads, but ultimately the township taxpayers pay for road millages. We pay for the gasoline tax that pays for the roads. I don't know. If they damage a road, normally our county road commission requires them to repair Textile and Bridge if they damaged it. But They haven't submitted anything, so we don't even know the plans. I do think we could hold them somewhat accountable through the county road commission, not through the township. Next question.
Can a bill be introduced to mandate energy audits, performance standards, and ensure transparency in energy usage reporting? Also, pass regulation that would prohibit rate hikes from being passed on to customers.
To the first part of your question, yes. The second part falls into the Michigan Public Service Commission's realm, which we're struggling with some things with them right now. We don't really truly have a voice of the people with the Michigan Public Service Commission, so that needs to be reformed. How we get there, we don't know about that. But yes, we're looking at other means that we can help regulate energy consumption. If one hyperscale data center went into an urban area and was going to use too much power, we could potentially regulate that with a bill subject to current statute, whatever current statute. But when you pass a bill, it overturns some of your current statutes. So it's a messy process, but we're looking at all of that to see how we could possibly maybe limit the power that a certain data center uses. But once they're sited, it's very difficult for noise, water usage, and power usage. Once they're sited and they're permitted, it's very difficult.
Next question.
Will the GM or former GM site offer any benefit from an electrical or utility standpoint to protect against price increases?
Yeah, it's the same regardless of where they go. They say it's not going to increase electrical costs on our customers, but it always has in other states. So
There is one benefit by going there. Yucca has advised U of M that because of the proximity the GM property is to Yucca's plant, the cost of having affluent or reclaimed water is available to U of M at that location. The cost would not be effective to use reclaimed water if you go to Bridge Road and Textile Road. So if U of M is really environmentalist, the state statute also requires data centers who get tax breaks to make use of reclaimed water, which in this case, I would argue that U of M is getting a tax break by virtue of their tax exempt status and getting $100 million. I believe there is an argument to be made that they should be going to where they can take advantage of this reclaimed water, which is used to cool down these computers. Until you see these data centers, the rows and rows and rows and thousands of computers, it's absolutely mind-boggling to see these data centers. And the 1.2 billion going into Bridge and Textile Road location, like over 800 million is for the computers. It's just incredible in the amount of hardware is going into these facilities. The warehouses just stored with all these computers.
next question.
Has the county weighed in on this project?
The county has not weighed in on this project.
Are there community and benefits involved like the fire department and Parks and Rec?
Community benefits involved?
There's no community benefit to us. I mean, again, they made it quite clear. They're not required to pay a dime, and they're not going to. So it's, again,
You can't make them. There's no mechanism to make them. There's just,
Let it burn. If it catches on fire, let it burn. Why should we?
right, yeah.
Sorry, I just had to say it.
there have been a number of fires in Ohio on the data centers. I mean, ironically, a lot of the fire departments in Ohio have complained because when the fires occur at those data centers in Ohio, because of their quote-unquote high security, they have been delayed significantly in being able to respond to fires. And for someone to think that right now that something bad is not going to happen at these two locations would be very naive on our part, given what's going on in the world today. And rest assured that if a call comes in, which it will, the township's fire department will have to respond. At the same time, so will the Washtenaw County Sheriff. So there's going to be a demand for their services, and that's why it was not lost upon us. Their response to saying no just happened to occur near the anniversary of 9/11. I just kind of felt that was just.
They're not a taxpayer, and we are. And they're obligated to rescue us, fire and police. So we're obligated as taxpayers to burden them. They take care of their property, I say let it burn.
Yeah, but what was stated by one of the residents in the meeting is that our taxpayers are paying for the fire and the police, and therefore we're paying for U of M's fire and police if they come here. They don't have to pay anything.
We're legally obligated to put out the fire or to respond.
Yes.
The question is, are we legally obligated? We have to take that, we'll go to open mic afterwards, but are we legally obligated? The sheriff department will respond, our fire department will respond. They're not going to say, let it burn. Next. Next question. Just a minute, sir. Next question.
I've got two questions here for our state representatives tonight. So who do we contact to support your bills to remove the tax breaks and start the moratorium? And someone asked, who would you sue, what entity, and how can the public support regarding the Endangered Species Act?
I would email or call every state representative in the state.
Sorry. I would call or email every state representative in the state of Michigan, encourage your family members that live in other districts, your friends, to call their state rep. Many of them will be supportive because, as Rep. Wilson said, this was pretty even, pretty 50-50. In fact, they didn't have enough votes until DTE weighed in and swayed about 9 state reps to vote for, because they knew it was going to go through the Senate, but they were having trouble in the House, and they pushed it through. And of course, the governor then signed it because I don't want to go deep into that, but I think that there was already deals struck to bring these data centers here. As far as the Endangered Species Act, I don't want to go on and on about it, but I really think you've got a legal recourse there. I really do. I think that that's your best avenue. It's not even a stretch. We've got from the last meeting, we've got the pictures of the eagles on the site.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah, right, plural.
Right.
Yeah, more than just eagles, right.
And
But the eagles are for sure an endangered species. So the other, hawks, blue herons, that too, that's where the environmental impact study comes in.
And the township board at our last board meeting did authorize the legal team to hire whatever professional services experts we need to fight this. So, and it was specifically on the endangered species and the environmental sensitivity of this site. What is bothersome to me is President Trump definitely wants data centers, AI centers, and he's been clear about it. And so does our state government. So they are in perfect alignment with this. And that's the scary part for us as local officials and residents is it's not often they're in alignment, and to be alignment on this issue, that economic development, it does not create the jobs that they say. It takes jobs, actually. I think it was a mistake, and we all make mistakes. And I think what the state of Michigan did to rush these bills through early was a mistake. And they need to look at it and say, look, it's out of control. And the only place they're going is townships. They're not going to go to cities that are already developed. So across, the state of Michigan, it's going to be the farmlands, the protected lands, the places that don't have the really ability, financial ability, and we really don't either, but we made it a priority. We're saying we're going to take it to the wall and do whatever we can on behalf of our community. But a lot of communities can't do that. And you can't zone them out of your community. You must allow them in there. So where do they go? That's what you have to ask yourself. Where do they go? If you have to have them, which you do, you have to allow them. If not, you'll be like this Saline Township. They said no, and they were sued, and they ended up with a legal agreement to allow it to move forward. So having moratoriums in place is good. The state of Michigan would be a huge blessing if they would do that. That would give everyone time to think and pause and prepare for what's about to hit the state.
Howell Township stopped their data center with a 1-year moratorium. That did it. They're going to go somewhere else because they're in a hurry, because there's only so much financing money for these data centers, and that's another intricacy to this. But they're going quick. They want to get them sited because they want to get the money. And so the moratorium worked in that case. Unfortunately,
University of Michigan.
Fortunately for you, the uniqueness of this situation, and supervisor is correct. In Saline, they were really in a difficult spot with exclusionary zoning. They didn't have an industrial zoning for this. So if you have a zoning and then you have an ordinance, this is for going into the future, you can make the site small. You can put restrictions on how they'll have to develop the site. And again, a lot of that is not going to apply to a university. So you have to fight, the area we're telling you to fight this is going to be a whole different track.
Next question.
So there's a really good one here. Are there any other candidates running for governor vocally against data centers?
I know that Tom Leonard has spoke out against data centers. Pardon?
We need Board of Regents.
Oh, Board of Regents? Oh, I'm sorry, was that Board of Regents?
No, that's not what they had.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Board of Regents, contact the and don't diminish the power that your congresswoman has. There's a lot of power there to influence what the EPA will do and even influence what University of Michigan will do. Honestly, when a congresswoman weighs in and says, listen, this community doesn't want this where you're putting it, and they've given you another option, I think they would listen to that. I would hope.
Did you say that
Next.
name again? What was the name?
Congresswoman Dingle?
The other governor.
Tom Leonard.
Thank you.
Next question.
Do you have consensus that this data center is A, bad idea, unacceptable cost/benefit, and B, just the wrong location?
Well, it's definitely the wrong location. It should be in a industrialized zoning, not where it's currently being proposed. I don't see any benefit to it because there's no jobs, there's no taxes, there's no benefit to it.
She was asking, I think, wasn't the question, was there consensus?
Yeah, do you have consensus that this is a bad idea?
Yeah, your township
Unacceptable
board,
cost
I mean,
benefit.
I think the attorney covered it, but we've adopted several different resolutions. We authorized at our last meeting, environmental, specialists to look at our dam, the FERC people, because our dam is right there, and the vibrations from might impact the dam, which is governed by the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, which requires a huge, expensive study to operate our dam. So we authorized any kind of help that we could get in there. We basically authorized anything that we can think of, specialists, attorneys, whatever, to help us. We're not, and the board is together on this 1,000% and have been from the beginning. I'm really proud to be a part of this, and I think we all are. And that we also basically have said, you don't know us. We're going to take this to the bank, U of M. We took on General Motors. Maybe we didn't win that whole thing, but we got some new state laws. Who sues General Motors? We did, okay? And we are going to do that That's what's going to happen. And get ready, U of M, because we're not going to lay down and let you come over here because we're poor, we're blacker, we're browner, and because we're not, that article that was just in, I'm sorry, I got to calm down. The article that was just in the paper about the 50 developments in the city of Ann Arbor, those high-rise apartments, millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then you have the audacity to come over here and decide that this is the place that you want. And worst of all is you pick this gorgeous site. So, what can you do? Go to our website, write letters and emails, a personal one to all of those folks about why it is that you love our parks. This isn't just these 2 parks here, because you've got 2 parks there that are going to completely destroyed, basically. Who's going to go to a park or kayak right on the banks of a data center and that huge, ugly electrical substation and that big what's it called? The other piece. Yes, the yard. They're destroying all that for us. And then all that's connected. The state of Michigan has spent, and your taxes, the township has spent millions of dollars. It is our number 1 key environmental resources here in River. We've got, I think I looked them up and counted them last time, I think something like 15 different parks are up and down the river from, the township, where the township starts, all the way down. And that's all part of a unit. So when you mess up one of them, you're destroying that whole process. Take videos that you have. If you're out there walking and you see these animals or birds, send them to those regions. And send them to us too, but send your letters and your. I can't believe. I know people say I'm too, positive thinking, but I cannot believe that all those Board of Regents, because they're the ones that decide. They're the ones that buy the land. They're the ones that when it gets down to it, that they can't. If you came over here, like Doug wrote in his statement there, that letter that we sent. If you came over here and you walked this area and you walked around the lake and you saw that, and better than that is if you could get on there on the water, how you would know who would do that, who would pick that versus that. And so but it's going to take all of us, because we can't legally stop them. We don't have any control. U of M, public, school districts, they can go wherever they want. EMU came here and built their stuff, but they went by all of our rules. They were a good neighbor. We have their beautiful boat dock down there. Anyways, I'm sorry. You're right. I am so sorry. But yeah, send those things to the Board of Regents and all those people that are on there. That's what's going to make the difference.
Forgive me.
Next question.
I'm terribly sorry. Your response confused me. The question was, is there a consensus that the data center altogether is a bad idea, or that the consensus is that it's in the wrong location? I know everyone thinks it's the wrong location. Is it a bad idea altogether, or just in the wrong location?
I think we all think it's a bad idea.
We think it's a bad idea, but legally you can't stop it due to exclusionary zoning. Yeah. Next question.
This is a comment from a resident, not a question. Lyon Township doesn't need a data center. I believe it is all cost, no benefit. I am opposed to more data centers on environmental justice and ideological grounds. More data centers give more capacity for misuse, such as increased AI-derived surveillance, something we definitely don't need. Thank you, Jill Warren, PhD, retired Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs, U of M alum.
We agree. And we are serious. If people have videos of the eagles, because we've been sent some, send them to Ypsi Township, and we will use them as part of our defense in the Endangered Species Act. Next question.
This is another statement, but it's given as a Q&A. How can the township dramatize our need? And the answer that's given here is through our children appearing before the Board of Regents.
Excellent.
Can I speak
Excellent.
to that, please, Madam Supervisor? How about using our school children? Do we have the ability to approach the Board of Regents? Can we get on their agenda? And if so, let's take the children because perhaps they would play on the region's heartstrings and realize
Excellent idea.
these are the children who will be damaged by your decision.
Excellent
Can
idea.
we get on their agenda?
Yeah, there is a way to do that through the University of Michigan website. You have to sign up to be able to speak before them, but there is a way to do that. Yes.
Parents, think about your grandchildren and children. I'm willing to take
Next question.
Good night.
Thank you.
What may be the impact on well water? We have 5 acres on Paint Creek and a well for our water source. Thank you.
They will not be using well water. The state law doesn't allow it either. If there is water and sewer available, then you have to use the municipal water and sewer.
Given all the adverse effects, what good is it to be in Willow Run? It should not be at all. Same side effects.
Yep. We agree that it shouldn't be at all, but if it's going to be in a zoning, it should be a heavy industrial zoned area. That is a former manufacturing facility. It was 1 million square feet, and it has the infrastructure there to do it. If it has to go, it should be in a heavy industrialized zoned area. Next.
Are you aware if State Senator Jeff Irwin, who's not here tonight, voted in favor of the $100 million for data centers in Michigan?
Yes, we are. And he could help us a lot with the University of Michigan, but he is not opposed to this project being where it's currently being proposed. So contact Senator Jeff Irwin and let him know how we feel.
Can you clarify who owns the GM property now, State of Michigan or U of M?
The state of Michigan.
Yeah, the state of Michigan formed an entity called the Will Run Arsenal for Democracy, and it's a state-owned entity, and they in turn have leased the property to ACM, the 307 acres, and again, only half of that is currently being utilized.
Next question.
If the university were to agree to move to the old GM property, what would the difference in energy usage be, and how would that energy usage less negatively impact residents?
No difference. No difference.
It's the same.
Yep.
Next.
Have you tried pressuring the U of M and National Labs to pay for Yucca improvements? They are millions in debt, and my neighborhood still smells like, I hope you don't mind me paraphrasing, it just smells a little crappy because of their crumbling infrastructure. If not, why not?
So the question is, can we make?
The U of M and National Labs pay for Yucca improvements.
No. No, we can't. What is, I was just at a Yucca board meeting, and it's coming to our board meeting in February for $11 million improvements in the wastewater treatment plant. So U of M doesn't pay any taxes. They will not pay for any of it.
As a township,
Here,
Mark?
let me go take this
Mark,
question.
yeah.
My concern is placing a data center in a residential area. There is pre-K through fifth grade elementary school 1.3 miles away from the proposed facility at Textile and Bridge, 1.8 miles away, and it is a daycare center on Teddy Bear, if I'm reading that correct, and 2.2 miles is another daycare center. Has there been any risk assessment study completed?
We have not done any, and they haven't provided any, not yet.
We just don't know enough about these data centers. We don't know enough about the electromagnetic fields. We don't know about what the sound effects, the loud, over 90 decibels will do to a residential area. We just don't know enough. If you look at the other states, very few people that live around these data centers are happy to have them.
Next question.
Has the township created, or is it going to create new ordinances to avoid situations like this, like Howell Township has done?
I'm not exactly sure what Howell Township has done, but we do have them now zoned only in heavy industrial areas. In the past, they were allowed to go in other districts because no one knew 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what a data center was. It's not the same as what it was years ago. So we have rezoned it to only heavy industrial area, and then there will be ordinances adopted to further protect anything that we can do and learn from other communities and data centers. U of M will be exempt from this. They are exempt from local ordinances. Yeah, building, planning, zoning, everything.
They can do whatever they want.
This question is to Representative Wilson. Will Jimmy Wilson Jr. on the Michigan House floor call to repeal the law that gave data centers tax breaks immediately?
There's already a bill that has been introduced to repeal that. I think that's
2 bills. Yep.
Rep. DeSantis' bill. Is it 3 bills?
2, Rep. Wagella and myself.
Yeah, and I did co-sponsor that bill to repeal that sales and use tax.
What are the bill numbers?
Oh, shoot, I gave him last time, and I thought I had him in my, I thought I had him in my phone, but I'll go on to the next question. I'll see if I can find him.
Any influential and/or wealthy people who are residents of the township? And a follow-up question, maybe related, unrelated, how do we make our voices known?
The best way is through the elected officials. The Board of Regents would be number one. County commissioners, state representatives, congressional, and senators. You have to just ask everyone to please take a stand on this.
Petition? Would a petition be helpful?
It wouldn't hurt to have a petition, and it wouldn't hurt, but we really need the elected officials to make a decision and take a stance on this, just like the township board has, and Representative Wilson in our district, of course. Next.
I think this one was already answered, but who did they purchase the land from?
First 20 acres was from Ford Motor Company, which is, and then the option to purchase, we think, is from the North Fork Railroad. Next question.
Have any bills been drafted to help regulate end-of-life or decommissioning of these data centers once they are eventually phased out or no longer used?
This is the issue that we've spoken about at great length with Frenchtown Township, because I mentioned this the last time I was here. Guess who cleans these up at the end of life? You do, the taxpayer, because the company will be long gone, or U of M will claim that they have a hardship to clean it up. So we think a good ordinance would have a certain surety bond, or what do they call that when an escrow, where you have to put money up front per acre or per square footage of the building for deconstruction and cleanup, because obviously with all of the electronic equipment and all of the different pieces of equipment that are going to be on this site, there's going to be some contamination.
The other one is partial. I got the other one.
Of course, if they file bankruptcy, then what happens?
That's why the taxpayer, in most instances, the company or the entity is either gone or they've filed bankruptcy, so then it goes to the federal government, it becomes a Superfund site, and the taxpayer cleans it up.
Yeah.
Next up,
question.
why should this data center be located next to the historical West Willow community?
The current zoning over there is heavy industrial. That's the only reason. The distance from the site on Bridge Road to the residential is, we tried to measure this because it was asked before, is around 430 feet. And the distance is 4,000 feet from the zoning in the industrialized area. There's currently other manufacturing facilities over there as well. So it's not good to be located anywhere.
This one's a statement more than a question. If and when the data center is built here in Ypsilanti, that legally U of M and Los Alamos must have full legal responsibility for any and all prevention of and reparations of any and all environmental issues and damage, including noise, light, vibrations, and illness, responsibility, accountability, including paying for any increases in water and utilities, property and millages, taxes caused by the data center, as well as complete and full transparency.
They would only pay for water and sewer.
Excuse me, that was my question, but I thought Alamos and U of M were going to be here, so I apologize. I was directing more to them. So instead, we just asked, do we know anything about all the mining that's being done that's needed for these, like that's happening here in Michigan?
No, we don't know anything. They haven't submitted anything at all. And because it is a federal defense, we won't see it. And University of Michigan doesn't have to file a site plan with us. They don't have to pay taxes, they don't have to file a site plan, they don't have to adhere to ordinances, and they will pay water and sewer rates and DTE rates, but that's not us, yeah. It's sad is what it is. It's horrible. Next question.
Can the township physically resist with vehicles and people to obstruct construction?
Can you? We will do everything that we can legally do, and as individuals,
I'll go to jail, yeah.
we can protest, which we have done in the past. But as elected officials, we're going to do everything and been authorized to do whatever we can do to fight this. Next.
Is anyone aware that there's a large gas pipeline running through that property? And I believe this is referring to Bridge and Textile.
It was built several years ago.
I think it's run,
It goes
is it?
right through that area.
I do know there's a pipeline there. I don't know exactly where it's at. We can find that because it is on site plans. And DTE did put a pipeline through there. Yes, that is recent.
Private company, I think so.
No, it was DTE. Nexus, it might have been Nexus. Yeah. But those easements will show up, and I hope and pray that they would have to adhere to distances from gas lines, and I know water and sewer lines, yes.
It might be enough to prevent it.
Yes. Next question.
Just a sec. Oh, great question. How can we find out about future meetings?
We put them on our website. And if you would sign up at ipsytownship.org, you can get alerts on things going on in the township. And every Sunday they're put out for what's happening in the next week. And we also put on there when U of M is having their meeting, we had the links. We did everything we could to push this out to the public. Next.
Okay, this resident probably thought U of M was going to be here, so 2 of these 3 are for them. Why now, when you really do not do business in Ypsilanti? And the second part is what job/property value water, electric will affect. So I think that's probably a U of M question. The third one, I'm gonna do my best to decipher the writing here. For the township, what other businesses, company, maybe requested a payout, something, and comes to the township?
That's mine. So the last question was, what other businesses besides the U of M, or was it a payout? It had to be something, because no data center is going to come into township if nobody's getting the benefit from it. I know I'm not getting the benefit from it, but the township or somebody's getting the benefit from it.
So they've gotten $100 million from the MEDC, and they've gotten sales and tax use breaks. And maybe if we read between the lines, they've got a lot of cooperation and push from the utility companies. And as far as the ownership of these companies, these are billionaires. This is Meta, Google, Amazon, Palantir. I mean, they're big, big companies. Yeah, Oracle.
Just again, my first question was, we never really did business with U of M, but we have a couple spots such as probably on Michigan Ave, we have the hospital, but that's not on Bank of them. But
Yeah.
also, I know U of M, I've been in this area for over 18 years, and I'm not on the board, but I know pretty much what it should be. It's no way that U of M, of all things, would have picked a spot far away, that's pretty much the borderline of, kind of like close to Belleville.
Right, Van Buren Town.
Yeah, Van Buren Township. U of M never moved that far.
Yeah.
Unless it's a property such, now we know it's the data center. But if you notice, all of the U of M buildings is kind of closer to
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor, the dental, not the Kellogg Eye Center that's on Huron.
Yeah.
And then the U of M hospital.
Well, like Mr. Winters stated, the Ann Arbor Economic Development representative and their planning commission said, and as far as Ann Arbor, we do not want data centers. That was a quote in the newspaper. They don't want data centers. So therefore, if they're going to have it, it's not going to be in Ann Arbor.
Oh, no, I know that.
Yeah.
Well, they're still in, and now they're 15, it's 9,000.
And they're picking townships, and it's probably less expensive to do it, but I don't know why we have no idea why they chose this site.
But as you all are leaders in the community. So if you want us to do certain things, I think that you all should write a game plan out, so then we all can follow your lead. Because at the end of the day, y'all are our superiors in the township, and it's a lot of things that we can say yay or nay on. Like I said, just like with general, I need to start coming to more meetings, of course, because even with businesses, I know there's a lot of businesses that want to come to FC, but they don't get the approval to come to FC, don't know why. That's just the area, just like the golf village that y'all tore down, and there's nothing there. So, I get it, I think.
What we can do is on our website, it has all the emails where people can send emails to people and oppose it. It has to be the Board of Regents, the state of Michigan, even our county commissioners. So that's what we have to do for the University of Michigan. Sir, we got to take questions from next. No, we have to go next. Next person. Sir, after we answer everyone's question, we're going to open up the mic. So let's get through the people who have submitted the questions.
So the Endangered Species Act is a federal act, but does Michigan's MCL or state laws have anything on protected animals like bald eagles? If not, would you draft a bill for such? And if so, how could I read something like that? A proposed bill or a passed bill?
The Supremacy Clause rules here. The Endangered Species Act is the law of the land. It applies all the way down to your township. And it really gives you honestly, it gives you some strength here because that's probably your best avenue. I mean, this is a very environmentally sensitive site. You can see it. It's on a river. I can't believe there's not so much floodplain on this site that they're building right next to a river, but like you said, there might be other motives here. I would just really pursue that.
Next, Monica, let's get through the ones that are here, and then we'll open up the mic for people.
Okay. That is all the questions we have.
I have House Bill 5396 and House Bill 5397. I have sponsored 5397, and Rep. Wagella has sponsored 5396. Those are the two bills repealing the tax breaks.
So what we need to do is put that on our website so people will have access to the two bills and like who you can contact and ask people to specifically support these bills. Yes, just a moment. Wait a minute. Let's get the microphone for Monica.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. I understand the supremacy clause, which is an issue with the executive order that President Trump even put in the first place, because you also have state rights. So with that being said, and that's a violation because you cannot come into a federal law, right? And a state law, this federal law cannot supersede state law. So with that being said, there are environmental laws inside the state of Michigan. And when you're looking at wetlands and you're also looking at possible environmental concerns, what MCLs in the state of Michigan address the environmental concerns that also can stop this project from being put right there? Because there are environmental concerns. And then lastly, I just want to clarify, just real quick. So it was answered that State Senator Jeff Irwin voted for the $100 million, if I have it correct. But yet and still, he is not here tonight. So with that being said, I'm making this a point for the audience. He needs to be accountable for the record. If he cannot be accountable for the record, he cannot come and face us as citizens. It's a problem. And maybe the problem is that he only had 263 votes when he originally became state senator. Won by that.
As far as the environmental side, so we have EGLE. That's our agency that enforces our environmental laws. And a lot of times EGLE will stand in place for the EPA to enforce wetland preservation. A lot of times environmentally sensitive sites. EGLE is going to, and I do believe that University of Michigan will still be accountable to EGLE. They don't get out of the environmental laws just because they're the University of Michigan. And this is the point I really want to reiterate and tell you. They are going to be subject to, at some point, they're going to have to answer to EGLE and to the EPA for what they're doing on this site. They may not get all the things they want, and there may be some preliminary plan that they'll submit, and then EGLE will say, we can't approve this. That's your hope, right? But in the meantime, I wouldn't sit back. I would not sit back. I would play offense with them in every way, shape, or form, including challenging them on the fact that you've got endangered species on the property.
All right, next question.
We have a question here.
Hi, it's actually, I'd like to suggest a strategy. So I work at the University of Michigan, and I could tell you some stories. But much of what you said tonight about, how they approach things and where they come from things. But, you keep coming back to this idea that you need to appeal to the region's best interests at heart. Good luck with that. The region's first and foremost concern is U of M brand. And that is where they start and that is where they end. And maybe after that, they care about other things. But that is their first and foremost primary concern, and you can see that. I mean, a good example is Sharon Moore, and it's not like Sharon Moore didn't do anything wrong, but they were good with him and his behavior until he became a problem for the brand. And then they were vicious. So I would like to suggest, having worked extensively in the fundraising side of universities, that you need to adopt the strategy of finding out who is funding U of M, and in particular targeting U of M high-paying donors that have an environmental interest, that come from IPSI, that come from Southeast Michigan, that are from the law school, who are now lawyers that focus on justice, that focus on small plaintiffs, and you need to wage that PR campaign and get those people to call the regents and say, we're going to stop giving money, or we're going to think about taking back our money, and that will change the regent's mind.
Would you
but
help us
as much
with
as
that?
I love these people, we're going to have a limited influence because we are not billionaires. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't parade our kids in front of them. I still think that's a wonderful idea, but they're going to focus on U of M brand first. And right now, this is a huge PR win for U of M to have this big data center and collaboration with Los Alamos. And so you have to help persuade them that it's more of a loss than a win.
Thank you. We might want to get with you and get some, okay, thank you. Next, it was right here, this gentleman.
Hi, I just wanted, well, I've got a question. You had mentioned, and I just want to make sure I've got it in my head straight, that you were attending the U of M Board of Regents meeting tomorrow?
They're having a community, they call it a community engagement meeting tomorrow at the Marriott Hotel.
Okay, so, but you weren't, the board was invited to that. It's not open to the public per
No,
se.
it's open to the public, and we signed up just like everyone else. And some of us were able to get in, and some of us were not.
Okay.
So according to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, they will have a second meeting.
Okay, under the threat of death, but
It took them what, how
get-
long to schedule this one? 9 months? Yeah.
Okay, I missed that part of it because the data center, all of that is something that I've become aware
Put
of.
the
that
microphone up to your mouth, please. There you go. hon.
The data center concepts is something I've just recently started looking at myself. And no, I don't want it in my backyard. No, there are questions, things that we don't know. And what it sounds like is the announcement was made, and we'll get to Ipsy Township and everyone else at some point in the future, telling them what it is we've already done, the we being U of M. Is what it sounds like to me. Okay, and I'm just...
That's about right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and the other thing, and it's been a while, I've worked with universities, primarily Wayne State. So I know their board meetings and what have you, those allegedly are public record. And I know it's challenging to get on the agenda, but I'm wondering, is that something that has been considered by the township? I'm just asking.
We never thought about going to be on their actual agenda, but we could go at public comments.
Okay.
And speak there, and it's limited, and only a certain amount of people can do it. It's very controlled, yeah.
No, understood, and I get that. I was part of that whole process.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. But it was just a thought, that was
Right,
all.
that's a good idea, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor, Jimmy and I were talking, maybe we have a government affairs liaison, and we'll actually ask if the U of M Regents would allow us to be on the agenda and for township officials and elected officials to go.
And who would that be?
Oh, gosh, we have so many liaisons. We have a liaison to every department.
I think the township knows the U of M government affairs liaisons pretty well.
I just didn't know if it was...
Long relationship there that's not quite
It's an interesting
friendly at
title,
times.
governmental relations. It's, I think.
They kind of are pushing the propaganda also, I'll just put it that way. So.
Next.
Yeah, I was wondering about using social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. You know, I think about Minnesota and how that's had an impact on through social media to get this great story out. You may get more support. You may get the attention of some of the billionaires. You may be even able to address the brand of U of M.
Yeah, good idea. We put it out on ours, social media, but not hiring a social media expert to do it, which might go to the brand with U of M. And that might be someone we may need to look at getting. That's a great idea. Next.
Thank you so much for having the community. Can everyone hear me?
Is it on?
Take this mic.
Thanks so much for having us here tonight. We really appreciate it. As I was taking my 75 pages of notes, it seems to me that there's a trail of potential litigation. Obviously, Representative, you're very correct, I believe, in the Endangered Species Act with the eagle. However, I also believe that potentially there was a conflict of interest with the board members on Spark approving the funding potentially, as well as we could let the University of Michigan know that we could look at the performance metrics on our property values retroactively after this is installed, and that would be an ongoing in perpetuity point of litigation for us. In addition, if we were able to either preemptively or prove any health metrics that were coming from the center, whether it's EMF radiation, which I think is very understated, it's a place that we need to study, or things such as cancer, headaches, and other. I am not a medical professional. I would like to also put on the table that if we could enlist the formal Native American community, if we can find out who was the inhabitants of the land. If you go to Eddie Bauer, by the way, and you look at location for stores, they actually show you who was there, where their store was, so it's not hard to do. There's probably a map that already exists, but I believe that that would be another point. And finally, early in the conversation, the attorney brought up the environmental racism. I think it's very clear when we're offering a functional site and they are going to claim a nature preserve farmland that can never be reclaimed, that there is potentially something that we can look at there. So I believe that all those are potential litigation that the University of Michigan would not want to have to bear. And to the young lady back there that works at the U of M, I agree with her about the PR. I think that it would be very bad PR for the Regents and the brand for any of these points to come to the public's attention, perhaps through social media, but I think there's other avenues. And also, if we approach them if you approach them at their board meeting and say, these are the issues, you're not caring about the environment, there's potential environmental racism, we have community suppression, obviously, that's how our people feel, and on, they wouldn't necessarily think that that was a good thing. So those were just some thoughts I'd like to share.
Thank you. Great ideas.
If anybody is looking for a resource to compose your remarks about environmental and impacts, funnily enough, U of M Ford School of Science, Technology, and Public Policy put out a report called What Happens When Data Centers Come to Town. It is a solid resource. I found out about it through the Washtenaw County Conservation District. It spells out in fairly plain language a bunch of bad things that generally happen, and it could be a useful resource.
And it was written in July.
Very ironic, very ironic.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion for a possible partner in this fight, and that would be the Huron River Watershed Council. Their director, Rebecca Esselman, was interviewed just the other day on WEMU, and she sounded opposed to this site. And they are the main authority on the Huron River throughout its run. I'm a birder myself in retirement, and I'm very familiar with North Huron, which is one of the top 50 birding sites, North Hydro, which is one of the top 50 birding sites in the whole county. And then there is North Bay itself, which is I think the top 3. And then there's the U of M. What's the U of M site? Not Matai, the other one. The Arboretum, that's on the Huron. And all of this is just a migration pathway for the waterfowl and all the other birds. A development like this could really pose a severe threat to that migration and all the people who enjoy it for sporting and all the other recreational activities.
That's an excellent idea. We should ask all of the environmental groups to also take a position. We have not done that yet. That's an excellent.
This is why it's really egregious that the government is not insisting on environmental impact studies. This river comes all the way through my district, and it's just like you say, eagles, herons, all kinds of waterfowl, ducks fly this, and I've been on every stretch of this river, even with my son rowing over by U of M. It's a beautiful waterway, and when you build two monstrosities like this, there's going to be a lot of roofs, a lot of concrete. It's going to change the floodplain. It's going to change the way this river floods. It's not going to flood onto their property. It's going to flood, well, there's quite a bit of floodplain here, and actually I can't even believe that they can have enough, that they obviously have some ideas as to where they're going to put the buildings on here. But the environmental impact and the species that are on it are your best avenues to fight this.
Great idea.
Okay, great minds think alike, because I was going to ask if you've been in contact with any local, state, or even federal conservancy groups to solicit their support for at least considering the second site. And what was the zoning of that property? I know it doesn't apply to the U of M, but what was the zoning of that property prior to its acquisition by U of M?
Mark, I think it was light industrial.
It's a light industrial zoning. There's a specific name for it, and it's, I believe, logistics and manufacturing for that site, which did allow data centers at one point, but no longer does currently.
On the pretty treed area?
Correct.
But a data center then was not what they are now.
Yeah. And it was owned by the
They were like an office
railroad.
building and
Yep.
like our network. We have an IT room that stores our data and we manage it, but it's nowhere near the size of these super. And I'll tell you, it wasn't until I went to Ohio with Trustee Thornton. We went, when you go and actually see them, you can look at pictures all day long, but when you go and visit them, and in Ohio there were 21 of them, and Mark drove us there, and we toured it. It is clearly a heavy industrial use. There's just no exceptions. When you see the high tension wires, the amount of water, the generator sound is a reality. They say they only use it in case
generators.
but that's not true. We've read all kinds of articles because it's cheaper to use them than it is to pay for the electricity. And how do you monitor that? So there's a lot of reasons why it is not like a data center as we think it is. It is really a very heavy industrial use and should be in a heavy industrial manufacturing area, like a plant.
Madam, thank you all for doing this and for being here. This has been so informative, and I really appreciate you all. I just wanted to say I work for Legacy Land Conservancy. We're a land trust protecting land in Washtenaw, Jackson, and Lenawee counties. We're a very small team of people, and we're already fighting the federal government for a rescinded award, protecting 4,000 acres. We're already working on a statement to fight a gravel mine on the border of Washtenaw and Jackson counties. So, and I can't promise anything because I'm not on the communications team. However, I just wanted to say that I will bring this to management so that we can craft a statement to support you, but also usually when we're fighting these good fights, someone brings it to our attention and requests it. And so I would just echo what everyone else is saying, and please put out a formal call. That would do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My question actually is for the gentleman that spoke earlier over in the corner, but as it probably will then move to those that spoke this evening. I know you were saying that you were looking for like leadership and guidance on like what to say, and I want to make sure I understood what you said, that like there's so many things right now that are being written where people are like just writing like with fill in the blank, like, hello, my name is blah, 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 and I'm concerned about this issue or whatever. Were you kind of hoping or looking for
letter?
The attorney and like
letter?
a form letter that could be accessed somewhere that then you could take that and send that off to the respective people like the regents and all that stuff?
And I know a lot of other organizations have done that because we've received a lot of, like hundreds of letters or emails, and they were form letters. And you can go online and fill them out and then send it. So having that posted on our website is something I hear people would like us to do. Yeah, it makes it easier. You're right, sir. Yeah.
Straight there, you don't gotta worry about the verbiage, you know what it's saying, everybody.
Yes, yes.
With the same information.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
Every state rep has two staffers, someone answering their phone, a front desk, we call them. You can feel free to look up the numbers and call, and sometimes they'll ask you if you're a constituent, but you can just say, hey, I would just want to leave word with you that I am opposed to these hyperscale data centers. I have one coming into my township, and there's no regulation on them, and I'm opposed to them, and I want you to stand against I want you to stand for House Bill 5396, 5397, and we don't have a House Bill number on Jen Wertz's bill yet, which is the one-year moratorium on hyperscale data centers. I think her bill does address the size. It's a hyperscale data center. We're not against, the township probably has some data stored. We're not against storing data. We're against these giant monstrosities that are strictly really for AI. That's what they're for.
We will do that.
I know we've been talking about the bald eagles, but I want to address Fort Lake and also Belleville Lake. We also have fishery inside of both of those lakes. So whatever happens at Fort Lake also affects Belleville Lake. And particularly, we have to look at, like you had said, if something is built there and it changes the direction of the water flow, that also affects the fish species that's inside of Fort Lake. That, to me, is also a big environmental concern for a community like Ypsilanti Township and also Belleville and Van Buren. Because we have a lot of people that fish there, right? It has been historical in our community, especially right over by the Hydro Center, that people have fished there for years. And there's people fishing probably right now that I saw a tent on Fort Lake, even in the cold. So can that be addressed, and how best would it be addressed? Because our fishery, and we also have to look at electronics, also affects the water. It affects the water and affects the water quality, which means I know we treat our water at Yucca. However, that does not mean that we will not have water issues in the future.
I think that this gets a little deep, and I'll try to answer as briefly as I can. Heavy electronics change frequencies, and animals sense those frequencies more than human beings. We don't sense them, but we're affected by them. So when you put something with this much electronics in a environmentally sensitive area, it changes everything. So we should be careful about where we put these. I agree they should go in industrial areas. I believe that there's a good alternative. It's next to an airport where there's already a lot of noise and a lot of vibration. It's not ideal. It's kind of the best way to avoid it going here. If it were my township, I'd be fighting it from coming in at all. And that's what Frenchtown Township's trying to do. They're trying to put buffer zones, put trees up, all the things that they are suggesting in their ordinance. They're just hoping that they'll just go somewhere else, because they're looking for the cheapest place and the most virgin site. And I didn't want to weigh in earlier, but when they come into a site that's a brownfield, there's concrete there. There's things they have to work through there. It's a little harder to get your foundations in. It's a little harder and you've got contamination. So they get a farm field or they get a site like this, they can scrape the topsoil off, cut the trees, and they've got a fresh building site. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for quick, easy, and these buildings are going to last maybe 15, 20 years, and the technology will be so much different. Then they'll say, well, we've got some big open empty buildings, we'll do storage in there.
Yeah,
Pardon?
they're going to be obsolete.
That's right.
Yeah. Next. We have a few more questions, and
This is sort of to tie into several different things that were being discussed. If we feel like the endangered animals is a good way to go, and we also feel like we need to turn the public messaging around, why not combine those things? Do like some sort of like photo competition to see if people can find more evidence of more rare species out there. You'll also get people out visiting the sites where you can then say, this is what is potentially going to happen here, and you can push that out as wide as possible because it's a public competition for like the best nature photograph of Ipsy Township or whatever. So we can sort of bring all of these ideas together in a lot of different ways. And there also are a lot of groups that are already working on this. So if you are looking for people who have been brainstorming, like what direction do we take this from, or you want to sort of collaborate more on this, that's there in your community and it's available. So it's nice to see this, and I think that we can find more people to sort of be working with than we've already considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent idea. There's a gentleman in the back.
Yeah, three thoughts. One is when people talked earlier about social media, I think that's an excellent idea that really should be, kind of focused on. But what I would say is to look at the youth of our future. Somebody talked about students, young people in front of the regents. Good idea. But if we can engage the U of M student body and ask them, they're the ones that really hold the greatest power because they contribute their money. And that will make a difference. On respect to the eagles, just photographing the eagles flying around is not going to get it. You actually need to photograph the nests, show them nesting. That's what's going to make the impact. And then third is when we talk about the utilities, specifically DTE and Yucca, we should be lobbying to get MPSC, and I would engage Attorney General Nessel for this, to get them to start looking at a specific rate that is directed at the data centers and them only, which could help to shoulder the burden of the electrical cost, generation, and transmission. And then for Yucca, it may be plausible, but to see if we can get the Yucca to create a special rate that is earmarked for data centers and have them to help fund the improvements needed and the cost associated.
Thank you. Great idea. Yes?
Hi. I do think you have allies within U of M. I also work there. I don't think the regents care at all what the students think. I think the recent protests against the genocide in Gaza is really a testament to that. Something that I'm kind of curious about and just looking into is like personal investments, big and small. I've started looking into like mutual funds, and almost all of them, even ones that are slated as green, include like Apple and Tesla and Google and all of these things, and they're kind of all wrapped up in our retirements. And, if we want to have any investments bring back any money at all, it's all tied up in this AI stuff. And I just wonder if we can collectively disinvest from these things. If that, I don't know. I just want to throw that out there. I think we do have money power, even if it's very decentralized.
One last question, is there?
Not a question, just a statement, but I wanted to piggyback off what the gentleman behind me was talking about, and maybe the woman who just spoke earlier could speak to this a little bit more. But what about pressuring the school for environment and sustainability? That's more of a crown jewel at U of M.
Good idea. Mr. Winters, did you have a final comment?
I just had one final comment. And as an attorney for, I guess now it's going on 47 years, you spend a lot of time in the courtroom, and there's two courts. You have the court of law, of course, and you have the court of public opinion. And I really think right now that U of M would probably love to see a lawsuit filed because they have the financial wherewithal to hire every law firm in this country if they want to. What I think is really urgent, where time is of the essence, I don't want to be redundant, but the people who really have the power to make this come to a head immediately truly lies with the governor's office, Governor Whitmer, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, our U.S. Senators Gary Peters and Slotkin. And those people right now can pick up the phone almost anytime they want to and be connected to the U of M regents, the U of M president. They know these people on a personal level. And in many ways, I think it's unfair to try and put the responsibility on us, so to speak, when we have powerful people that can make that difference, make that phone call tomorrow. I just can't emphasize enough that time is very fleeting. You get involved in lawsuits, I'd be the first one to tell you that those lawsuits can go through a series of protracted discovery, go through a protracted appeals.
That's what you want.
On and on. But at the same time, you know, U of M plays the long game, and they have the resources. And they, you just saw what happened, involving their former football coach. The first thing they did was hire one of the biggest law firms out of Chicago to come in and investigate all the things going on in their athletic department. So attorneys are needed, and I'm one of them. But at the same time, I do think that immediately this is a case of in the court of public opinion where our federal and state officials have to look at that map. Just look at it. It's not a hard decision to make. If Los Alamos is so important to the federal and state government that they locate in Michigan in a partnership with U of M, then the people who represent us in Lansing and in Washington should be at the forefront saying, this township is not saying no to them coming, they're saying no to the location that U of M has chosen. It's not that hard of an ask to have our officials speak out, and you can go to meetings, and you're going to get the runaround tomorrow night. They will not answer questions the way this panel up here did this evening. They won't answer questions. They'll have you walk around those little boards and show pictures of this and pictures of that. They will not give you a definitive answer. It's not going to happen. But I do think they will have to listen to the Congresswoman, to the U.S. Senators, to those in Lansing, and that's where I really think a lot of the pressure should be applied. We can go through and get ourselves ready for the litigation to come, but I would like to see an immediate call to arms, so to speak, in regards to those officials that are named in our resolution, because they can make a difference much more quickly than sometimes the court can. We can fight the good fight, and we will. But I'm also looking at this from a practical standpoint as trying to get this done sooner rather than later. Just again, a call to arms for those who are asked, as of this date, the only person in the resolution that's raised their hand has been State Representative Jimmy Wilson in regards to saying, bad spot, don't go there, go to the industrial site. That's all we're asking the rest of the elected officials to do. Take a stand. Stand with us. Stand with you. It's not that difficult a task. It's, it's simply, again, look at the maps. And you can draw your conclusion pretty quickly. Common sense tells you to destroy 144 acres for 2 data centers when you have the state of Michigan has already put $100 million into the site readiness of General Motors' former property. It's ready to go. It makes no sense to put everybody through all this when they could go there tomorrow and make it happen. So again, the court of public opinion is as strong, sometimes as the court of law, and I would really encourage you to make the contact with the senator's office, the congresswoman's office, the governor's office, because we're not saying you're not welcome to come here, so to speak, like some places have said you don't want you to come at all. We're saying you can't go there. You shouldn't go there. Yes. And that, I think, is a reason as to why the public officials should get involved, because they're having a community that's trying to have, like I was saying before, you're at an impasse here. What's the solution? And the solution is very obvious. Go to where the infrastructure is in place, where the water and sewer is available, where you can use the effluent, and you're not going to have environmental impacts as you're going to have on bridge and textile roads. So thank you.
I want to just thank all the residents who've come out to the second meeting, and the support that you have from your board is with the people. And I do want to also thank the University of Michigan employees have come to many of our meetings and stood up and said, I might lose my job for saying this, but they have stood up and warned us from the very beginning, do not trust the University of Michigan. What they say they will do, they will not do. You cannot trust what they say. And I'm telling you, they were 100% correct. This is our first experience with the University of Michigan, and it has not been a good one. And if they treat us the way they treat every other community that they go, shame on them. Shame on them. It's not necessary to treat people the way they treat the township board, their employees, and our residents. So I just appreciate the amount of people that come out and care enough to make a difference. We're going to fight. We're going to keep fighting, and we need you to help us do it. And please don't give up, because we're not going to either. And thank you for coming.